Make-A-Wish has volunteers who spend countless hours making these wishes come true for kids. And they do so many extra things to make these kids feel special and to make their wish the greatest event of their life.
In what other ways are you of service specifically to this community?
Well, I coach my kids' soccer teams and baseball teams. Well, baseball we haven't done for a while. Flag football season's coming up, and so I'll have two coaching responsibilities this fall, and I'm looking forward to that. So I hope I serve the community by being a good dad, and I think that's one of the best ways people can serve is by just being a good person, whether your role as a dad or a husband or whatever it may be. I also have the opportunity to host events along the way. In September, I'll be hosting a couple, one for the Public Education Foundation and another for Kids to Kids. It's a great organization that gives books to at-risk children who might not otherwise have books in their home.
What was the first service project you were ever involved in?
Oh, that's a good question. That I can remember. You know, growing up in the LDS church, we did a lot of service projects. So I'm trying to remember one that pops up. I remember doing one where we went and cut, we took care of this woman's lawn. She was an elderly woman, she was a widow, and so we spent a whole day, her yard was unkempt, and she was unable to take care of it. And so we went in there and mowed and clipped and pulled weeds. I mean, it was a long process because the yard was in such disarray. But I still remember that to this day. I couldn't have been older than, I don't know, 11 or so. But that one sticks in my mind because I remember afterwards she served us lemonade and she seemed so grateful. And I remember thinking how good that felt to do that.
Why do you think so many LDS are so involved in service in this community?
From the very, I think it's because of the culture we grew up in. It's very much about serving others, which is great because what happens is when you start serving others, you realize that in a way it becomes a selfish action. And I know that sounds weird on the surface, but when I talk about that feeling I had, when I was 11 years old or however old I was when we went to that lady's house, that's a feeling that's pretty consistent with, serving others. You feel good, and I think, my belief is that's God's way of affirming that, you're doing the right thing. And so it becomes pretty easy to give service after a while because you realize this is a good way to live. I think the toughest way to live is focused only on yourself. And that's where I think a lot of depression sets in and people get stuck because if you're only looking out for number one, it's going to be hard to truly feel happy.
Can you describe a moment that you knew that service was going to be a major aspect of your life? What that inspirational moment was? Was it a calling? Try to describe something about that.
I'm not sure there was one event where an epiphany took place, at least not that I can remember. And I'm not sure I'm there. I still feel like I need to do more. I see so many other people who are better examples of service than I am. I recently went to a girls' camp. My daughter was going to a girls' camp for church, and I went out there and volunteered for one day to help out with canoeing. And what I saw around me were hundreds of people volunteering their entire week to make this girls' camp a success. Working in the kitchen literally from sun up to sundown, or making sure all the tents were set up, which was, with girls tearing them down, was a 24/7 job. I see so many examples around me that remind me that I'm not there yet. I'm not to the point where I can say I am doing everything I can service-wise. I do know that over the years, having what service I have done, I know what feeling I get out of it, and I know that I love seeing other people benefit from things that I participate in. And usually, there's so many other people that make it happen, but just to be a small part of a group effort, it gives you a good feeling.
Are you a regular attendee in your church or your temple?
Yeah.
Are you an elder or some other position of responsibility?
Yeah.
Can you please describe that to us?
Yeah, I'm an elder in the LDS Church, and this coming school year, a new experience for me will be we have a seminary program where the kids get up an hour before high school, starting in high school, and they have instruction, church, gospel instruction for 1 hour every day before school. It is a major sacrifice for those kids. I think as you get older, it gets easier to wake up earlier, but we remember as teenagers, it's tough getting up early. So I have all the admiration in the world for these kids who are making that sacrifice and getting up that early. So I'm looking forward to that experience.
So you're going to be teaching that
At 5:50 a.m. Monday through Friday.
Wow.
Yeah.
What kind of topics will you cover?
Well, this year it's the Old Testament. Each year it'll be different. But this year it's the Old Testament, so which is good because I need to study up. I'm like a lot of people. I guess maybe once in my life I've read it front to back, page cover to cover, but I certainly don't know it as well as I should. So it'll be a learning experience.
Besides your attendance at your church and your service to the church, do you have any particular spiritual practice that you're involved in?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because I think that certainly spiritual experiences are not limited to church attendance or religion in particular. I think that every person on this earth is entitled to spirituality and spiritual experiences, and I think that if we look for them, they're there. And I think a lot of it is just recognizing that the miracle of what's around us, and that God loves us, and that we're all God's children. And in that, there are spiritual experiences. Just recognizing that every single day, because it allows you, and believe me, I wish I could do this every day, because I don't. But when I do practice this, when I do keep that in mind, and when I'm in that realm, I'm able to let things go. The guy that cuts me off in traffic doesn't bug me. The guy that is angry or yelling or even angry at me doesn't bug me, because you have that kind of spiritual perspective. And I would love to have that every single moment of every day, and I don't. But that's what I mean when, there are other spiritual practices, and I think that's one of them, is trying to recognize the greatness in every single person on this earth and the potential that's there. Have you ever read the book, The Four Agreements? It's is it Toltec? Is that Toltec wisdom?
I think I did read it, but
Yeah.
it didn't pound me, because
I
it's only one of many. But
yeah. I loved it for exactly what you're talking about. It's one of the messages, one of the four agreements, is realizing it's not personal. That person that cut you off, or the person that's shooting the bird because you cut them off, or whatever it may be, we don't know their whole story, but we do know it's really, in all likelihood, it ain't about you. It's they.
It certainly isn't about you. They don't know who you are.
Right. So it's not personal. It's they could have just lost a job, or a loved one, or a dog, or maybe they just were in a fight with their spouse. Yeah, and I think on some level we've all had that experience where we've thought one thing for a second, and then all of a sudden had that realization that it's not what we thought it was, and we were judging harshly.
All right. What would be a good beginner's project for service? Someone who's never been of service and they think they're interested, they'd like to try it out.
That's a good beginner's project would be to find something that interests you and that you're passionate about on some level. If you have an affinity toward animals, and saving them, Maybe you look at, helping out a shelter. If you are partial to helping children who are at risk, there are a lot of organizations that do some great things for kids who don't have enough to eat or don't have books or whatever the case may be. And Make-A-Wish's situation, it's for kids who are sick. I think that's the key is find something you're passionate about and then find a way to help those individuals. And there's so many opportunities to do that because there are some great organizations out there. It's a matter of a phone call and saying, how can I help? And they'll find a way for you to help pretty quickly.
So you would say that it's better to try and plug yourself into an existing organization than start a project on your own to start?
I would. There are a lot of startup 501c3s out there, and I admire every single one of them and that are really doing it for the right reason. But sometimes there is a duplication of service that takes place, and someone might be starting up a 501c3 without knowing that there's a big group over here already trying to do the exact same thing, and a little research would show, hey, I could put my resources into this and make that group even bigger and more effective. That being said, service doesn't always have to come in the realm of a nonprofit. It might be as simple as picking up your neighbor's paper and taking it to their doorstep because they're an older couple or a widow or whatever, and that walk out to the sidewalk, for you and me, not a big deal. For them, it's a trek.
Or taking your kids and cutting their yard for them.
Yeah. It can be simple stuff, and it's not going to be celebrated or heralded by anyone, but it does. It will be so appreciated, and it will make a difference.
Why would someone who has a good life want to serve others?
I think for that very reason, because they have a good life. When you talked, and I think that's such a great point about being grateful for what you have. I think the people who have a good life are the ones who are grateful for what they have. And because of that, good life has a very broad definition. It doesn't mean they have a lot of money. It doesn't mean they have even a traditional family. It doesn't mean they have a lot of material goods. A good life is one that is appreciated for what it is. When you visit other places, be it in this country or elsewhere, pockets of poverty, and there are many of them outside this country and in this country, sadly, you see people who are happy despite their circumstances, living in squalor in some cases, but grateful for the little things that I should say, take for granted on a daily basis. I don't think every time I get a glass of water, wow, I'm so grateful to have clean water. And I don't think every time I eat breakfast, wow, I'm so grateful to have this breakfast. And yet, here are some people where that is something they recognize every single day. And they live a very happy life because they do recognize the blessings they do have in their lives. And I think that could be the definition of a good life, is someone who recognizes the blessings in their life, be they large or small.
Nothing that you have, nothing that either of us can see in this moment, nothing that you've ever eaten could come to you without the efforts of thousands of other people. Yeah. Literally, thousands, just to get you an apple. Mm-hmm. Or whatever the case may be.
Or the glass of water.
Or the glass of water. Thousands of people are involved in getting you a glass of clean drinking water.
Yeah.
If you knew you could not fail, what would you attempt?
I don't believe in failure, so I don't feel limited in that way. Maybe, if I knew I couldn't fail, I would have tried to become a professional baseball or football player, so I guess there are limitations. But you know what? Man, I don't think the fear of failure should stop anybody. I really don't. Because I just think that